The goal was simple: build the most informative football video on the internet. It's season 3 for Bologna State and head coach Giovanni Rigatoni, and they're providing a full backstage pass to how they install their offense and defense from day 1 of training camp. This may not be something you finish in one sitting, although we know the real Bologna State fans will. It's designed to be something you can come back to when you need inspiration or a concept finally clicks, or just when you want to know more about a certain play. What you're about to see is 5 days of offense and defense installation, formations, concepts, coverages, pressures, the real process from the ground up on how a coach would actually build this, and what gets taught first and why. And for Bologna State, the success of their season depends on these 5 days being really productive. Now, I want to place a disclaimer in here that there are deeper levels that we can take this video: offensive lineman footwork, defensive lineman hand position, quarterback eyes, receiver mechanics, defensive back techniques, but none of this is going to be super important to playing the game or watching football in real life, so I left all that out. But just know that each position coach is working really hard with their players on those very granular details while we're going over the high level information. My goal is to help you play the game or enjoy the game more on TV without getting too deep in the weeds. This is the Rigatoni recipe: a college football dynasty played on Heisman difficulty with the default cupcake roster, all from a former coach's perspective. So smash that like button if you have no idea what match coverage is, hit subscribe if you're ready to learn more about wide zone running, or leave a comment if you think Season 3 is the year Coach Rigatoni finally stops getting snubbed for the playoffs. Let's get into it. Now, before the players even show up to training camp, there's some pre-work that's required in terms of studying the playbook. The playbook includes everything you can imagine, from team philosophies and goals, how you're supposed to line up in the huddle, even policies like how media relations are handled or gambling. Of course, it also includes all the offensive or defensive plays depending on what side of the field you play. But there are a couple rules that I want to make sure you're aware of before we get into any of the training camp stuff. First of all, this is defensive line technique designations and offensive gap designations. Now, I know what you're thinking, and if it's anything to the effect of "what am I looking at?" or "I didn't know I needed algebra to watch football," then give me a second to explain. If you were to split this diagram down the middle, it's a mirror image of itself on both sides. So now that that's out of the way, let's start with the offensive gaps first. The area between the center and the guard is called the A gap. The area between the guard and the tackle is called the B gap. Between the tackle and tight end is the C gap, and outside the tight end is the D gap. These gaps are important to know because offensive running plays will attack them, and blitzes can be in any of these gaps as well defensively. On defense, you typically want to defend each of these gaps based on your alignment. If an offense can create an opening in any of these areas that a running back breaks through, that's called getting past the first wave of defenders, but more on that later. On defense, these technique designations determine where the defensive lineman lines up. He generally doesn't just put himself directly in the middle of a gap or directly in front of the offensive player, even though he can. What he does instead is either a heads-up alignment or a shade. These shades all have numbers, so it's easy to explain. A heads-up alignment all have even numbers, 0, 2, 4, and 6. However, if you thought that was easy, inside or outside shades don't follow any logic pattern whatsoever. Outside shades start with 1, 3, 5, but then randomly jump to 9, and inside shades are 2i, 4i, and 7. So if I tell my defensive tackle to line up in a 3 technique, that means I'd like him in the B gap on the outside shade of the offensive guard. As you can see by this example, the defense is lined up in both A gaps with the linebackers in a 2i technique, which is an inside shade of the guard, both B gaps with a defensive tackle in a 4i technique, which is the inside shade of the tackle. The C gap is open, and the defensive edge is in a 9 technique. If we were choosing to run the ball against this defense, we may want to consider a play that targets the open C gap since we have good angles and there's a vacancy there on the defense. Next up, we need to talk about the field itself. Knowing the field dimensions and definitions is very important when it comes to lining up at wide receiver or defensive back, and it also helps those skill players know where to run their routes or where to cover. Sometimes your coverage could even change based on where you are on the field. We have the back pylon and the front pylon, the end line and the goal line. There's the top and the bottom of the numbers. There's being above or below the numbers, and there's the inside or the outside of the hash marks. In terms of the actual field dimensions, the field is 53 1/3 yards wide. It's 6 yards yards to the bottom of the numbers, 9 yards to the top, which makes the numbers themselves 3 yards. It's 8.8 yards from the top of the numbers to the hash mark. The distance between the hashes is actually a little misleading in this diagram because this would technically be a high school dimensions. A college field is 20 yards from the sideline to the hash mark, and between the hashes is 13 1/3 yards apart. So it's 33 1/3 yards from the sideline to the far hash mark. If the ball is on the left hash, then the short side of the field is called the boundary, and the wide side of the field is just called the field. The same would be true if the ball is on the right hash. So in this example, the ball is on the left hash. My left receiver is lined up on the numbers, my slot receiver is lined up on the hash mark, and my other receiver is lined up on the top of the numbers off the screen to the right. It's 20 yards from the ball to the left sideline into the boundary, and it's 33 1/3 yards from the ball to the right sideline into the field. Some defenses may call coverages, formations, or blitzes based on your offensive formation, but they could also do this based on the ball position. They could roll coverages to the field since there's more space, or they could send pressure from the boundary since it's condensed. All of this matters for the offense and defense in terms of trying to create an advantage. Next up is personnel groupings. Knowing the personnel on the field is critical for a defense because that helps them get an idea of what the offense might try to do, and it also helps them figure out who they want on the field to try to defend it. A good general rule of football is that the defense wants to try to match personnel with the offense. So if the offense has smaller, faster guys on the field, generally the defense also wants their smaller, faster guys to defend it. If the offense has bigger and stronger guys on the field, then the defense wants bigger and stronger guys out there to defend that. The way a defense and offense communicates that is through personnel groupings. To keep this simple, your personnel is numbered by how many running backs you have on the field and how many tight ends. The number of receivers is assumed since the offense can only have 5 eligible players on the field from running back, tight end, and receiver. So if you look at this chart, 10 personnel means there's 1 running back and 0 tight ends. 21 personnel means there are 2 running backs and 1 tight end. The NFL predominantly runs 11 personnel, which is 1 running back and 1 tight end. Take note that an offense can come out in a variety of formations within these personnel groups. This is just to help the defense identify what players are on the field. So in this example, you can see that Bologna State is using 13 personnel because they have 1 running back and 3 tight ends. This is generally a heavier personnel grouping that could have advantages running the ball against a smaller, faster defensive personnel grouping. If you remember our previous lesson, this particular defense has no one currently aligned in the right C gap or the left A gap. But those that are paying really close attention can see that the linebacker is doubling the right A gap behind the defensive tackle, and the safety is in a closer alignment than he normally is. All of these details matter when it comes to attacking or defending, which we'll get into as the video progresses. Our final piece of pre-work is in regards to setting the strength and numbering receivers. As we noted above, defenses don't just line up anywhere and figure it out. They have a very specific alignment based on the strength of the offense and the receiver numbering. Let's start with setting the strength first. On defense, setting the strength can vary from coach to coach, and it's also varies slightly based on personnel groupings. But in general, the strength is determined by the side which has more receivers or tight ends. So in the top example, there are 2 receivers or tight ends to the left and 1 to the right, so this would be strong left for the defense. In the bottom left example, there are 2 receivers to the right and 1 to the left, so this is strong right. In the event that there are the same number of receivers and tight ends on both sides, the strength is usually set to whichever player is better or the starter. So for example, we would set the strength to the Y tight end if there are 2 tight ends opposite sides of the ball, or we would set the strength to the slot receiver if there's a slot receiver and a tight end. All of this helps the defense understand where to line up and what to do. As far as numbering receivers, you count from the outside going in, meeting at the ball. So the farthest outside receiver on each side is the number 1 receiver, and the next player is number 2, the next is number 3, and so on. If the running back is directly behind the ball, then he's not given a number until he moves. So in the top example, if the H-back moves to the left, he's the number 3 to the left. If he moves to the right, he's the number 2 to the right. You can see by just explaining this how useful motion is for an offense and why you see it on nearly every play in college and the NFL. If you can get the defense to second guess the strength or the receiver numbering, it can create miscommunication or breakdowns in coverage, alignments, or just leave unexpected openings in their defense simply because of the confusion. So in this example, the offense has 3 receivers to the right and 1 to the left. For the defense, because this is flipped, they are setting the strength to the receiver side, so this is strong left for them, or this 3 receiver side. The receivers are numbered outside in on each side, so this is the number 1 receiver, this is the number 2 receiver on each side, this is the number 3 on this side. Most coverages depend on knowing this numbering, and many coverages even depend on the numbering after the ball has been snapped, which we'll get into later. Welcome to day 1 of training camp. This typically ends up being a good and bad day for various reasons. It's good that the players are fresh and everyone is excited, but bad because the execution is usually terrible right now while everyone's still learning. A coach would typically want to start as foundational as possible on the first day and ultimately build off of it. So for Coach Rigatoni, that means installing his zone running schemes both wide and inside zone, and getting all of his single back personnel in from 11, 12, and 13. There is some motion and shifts available from this personnel grouping as well, so we're just going to introduce those things today because we'll end up building on it later. There's no passing at all in the team period on day 1 because the offensive line needs to get a little more comfortable with pass protection and their individual drills, and the receivers and quarterback will be conducting 7-on-7 drills separately. Our goal with our single back package is to create every possible alignment and run all of our base plays from those alignments so that we can put our players wherever we need to create an advantage. 2 receivers on one side and 2 tight ends on the other, 2 receivers on opposite sides, 2 tight ends on the same side, 2 receivers on the same side, 2 tight ends on opposite sides. Every possible combination exists here. The cornerstone of Coach Rigatoni's offense is the wide zone, or stretch as the game calls it. If we can't successfully run the stretch play, we can't execute our offense. So how does Coach Rigatoni teach it? First, the running back's landmark is the outside leg of the tight end. By his 3rd step, he should decide one of 3 things. 1, stay on the track, 2, cut it up, or 3, bend the ball back. By the 5th step, commit to your decision. The running backs will need multiple reps of this, so let's practice. Here's step number 3 for the running back. Are you able to stay on track? If we can seal the edge, take the ball outside. If the edge is too hard from the defense, look to cut it up. And if they all over pursue, bend it back towards the middle. I think we can get the edge here, so by the 5th step, we commit to that decision and accelerate, start sprinting. Let's run it again. Here's step 3. Where are you gonna go? Defense seems to be setting a pretty hard edge. They're over-committing, cut it up the field. That's your angle. 5th step, go. Here's what the same play looks like in real speed now. Now we want to run it from our wing formation, which has the 2 tight ends, but the receiver is on both sides of the formation. Same play, same read. Now we run it out of ace. 2 receivers on each side, 2 tight ends on each side. Now we run it from ace slot. We want to run it to the left side. We want to run it to the right side. We want variability in this offense, even if the plays are the same. From here, you can see how this series plays with itself because all of these formations have stretch and all of them we can adjust to from any moment. So we can move the tight end over, we can move the receiver over, we can move both tight ends and both receivers over. Whatever we feel we need to do at any given point, we can create that matchup. And if our offense wants to go with a tempo style offense, we can do it all from this personnel. But we're not done here. We got to run stretch out of 13 personnel as well. So this one has all 3 tight ends on one side. This one has a wing tight end on the right-hand side, but tight ends are split. This one has a wing formation, but the receiver is on the left side. Again, we can flip that and get variability here. And then we run it out of 11 personnel as well. So this had a slot to the left side. This one has a slot to the right side. Left, right, variability in formations. Wide zone is the staple of this offense. Next, let's get into inside zone. We're going to run this from all the same formations and personnel groups that we just ran with wide zone. How do we execute this play? Well, the running back needs to read his double team, which is typically going to be on the first down lineman on the play side of the center. But there are some situations where there is no double team or that rule isn't true, but it's a good concept to start with. Just as we did with wide zone, the running back has 3 rules here as well. Dive straight ahead, bounce wide, or cut back across. This decision also happens by the 3rd step, and we accelerate on the 5th step. Don't start sprinting until you've made your decision. But then once you make a decision, commit and run. So now let's practice. Double team happens on the first down lineman to the left of the center or the play side of the center. Which way do you want to go? If you've made your 3rd step and you commit, go. Here it is going to the right now. Same play. Double team is going to be wider this time. We read the double team. We think there's an inside lane. Let's take it. It's that simple to read, but you got to be quick and decisive. Now let's go inside zone split. Same play, same read. The only difference is the wing is now coming across to kick out the end man on the line. Look for your double team. Can you go outside? Do you go straight? Do you bounce back? It's all just a read off of that double team block. You can see we can run this again and again, different formations out of that wing, but it's still going to be just as effective. And you guessed it, we have this to the left, to the right, different formations, different personnel packages. In most real offenses, you would have multiple ways to run wide zone and inside zone as well, so not just one play, but variations of that play. But the game doesn't have that much detail. But this is a solid first day of training camp for Bologna State's offense. Coach Rigatoni is very happy with the results so far, and the running back is looking quick. While all the offensive stuff was happening, the defensive side of the ball was going through their day one routines as well. We're going to install 3 separate coverages today, cover 1, cover 3, and some cover 0 pressures, all from our base personnel fronts. We want to get as many fronts as we can in base today and start getting comfortable with our single high defense. Bologna State's base this year will be 4 down linemen from a 4-3, but there are a few wrinkles in here. Similar to the offense, we want a lot of different ways to play defense, so we have over, under, odd, even, solid, and even a bare front from base personnel. Let's start with cover 1 hole. This coverage brings the safety down to help cover the tight end, with the corners playing man-to-man on the other receivers. In cover 1 hole, you typically would not play press coverage, and you would play outside leverage since you have help in the middle of the field. Outside leverage just means you're playing the receiver on the outside of him instead of on the inside. Everything about playing good defense is about leverage and playing towards where your help is. These guys all have help in the middle of the field from the hole player and the deep safety. The 2 inside linebackers are supposed to play what's called a funnel technique, and I do see this working properly in the game sometimes, where they're both watching the running back to see which way he releases. The closest linebacker to that side will play him man-to-man, and the other one becomes the hole player. So you can see in this example, even though the linebacker away from the back is lined up in man-to-man according to this mark, after the ball is snapped, the zone linebacker actually takes him man-to-man and the other linebacker becomes the hole player. The deep safety in this defense is there to protect any long throws over the middle of the field. This is why the corners need to play often with outside leverage, because any deep passes toward the sideline, they will be left completely on an island. Cover 1 is a smart way to get an extra defender closer to the line of scrimmage to defend the run, and a safety is generally a better player than a linebacker at covering the tight end, so it helps the defense that way too. Similar to what we practiced with stretch, we can run cover 1 hole from an over front, which gives us 8 defenders close to the line of scrimmage and looks like this. We can also run this from an under front, which is an over front that sets the strength to the weak side, hence the word under. The same goes for this odd front, which despite me still running cover 1 hole, it doesn't seem to have as good of angles against the power run, and it's actually not working very well. This is a classic chess match of football in that some tools are better for the job but weaker into other things. So having the right tools for the right job is important. Coach Rigatoni's goal for training camp is making sure the players understand and have all of the tools. During the season, he'll explain the why and the when to use the tools based on each team and each situation so that the players are as prepared as possible. But we're going to leave no stone unturned in day 1 of training camp. We want to make sure we understand how to run cover 1 hole and how to run it from every single base personnel front that we have. Now let's talk about cover 3, and we'll start with cover 3 match. Similar to cover 1, this also allows us to have multiple defenders in the box, and it's a better coverage to use when you don't have the best man coverage defenders to just lock players up in cover 1, but you still get that man coverage defense. Match is a unique coverage that the defenders play man based on what the offensive players do. In cover 3 match, the corners will play man on the number 1 receiver unless number 1 goes under in the first 5 yards. If this happens, he will pass him in inside and zone off to the deep third, keeping his eye on the number 2 receiver. The seam flat player will play man on number 2 unless he goes under in the first 5 yards. If this happens, he will pass him inside to the curl, looking to play underneath number 1. This player should only cover number 3 if he absolutely cannot help on number 1, like it's a fade or a go route, or if the quarterback is in the process of throwing the ball to number 3. The hook players are the only zone-ish players. They're going to eye the release of both number 1 and number 2 to their side as they begin their drop. If number 1 and number 2 are both vertical, then the hook players have any number 3 receiver to their side. Otherwise, the hook players will defend the hook area, protecting from deep to short. This can be a lot to take in at first, so let's look at an example. This would be a standard 4 verticals concept by the offense where all 4 receivers are going to run a go route down the field. Because number 1 is vertical, the corner will play him man-to-man. And because number 2 is vertical, the seam flat player will also play him man-to-man. This is different than just a normal cover 3 zone because the players aren't just dropping to an area. Their coverage is based entirely on what the offense does. If we look at the same 4 verticals concept against a standard cover 3 zone, you'll see that the curl flat defender does not run with number 2 up the seam, creating a vacancy that the offense takes advantage of. Let's take a look at another example. You can see in this example, number 2 runs vertically, so the seam flat player takes him, and number 1 runs vertically, so the corner takes him man-to-man. On the backside, number 2 goes underneath, so the seam flat player lets him go and plays underneath number 1 on his side. The hook defender has 2 verticals on his side, so he takes any number 3 receiver on his side, which is the crosser, and the other hook defender plays from deep to short, so he covers this new number 2 player on his side. It's pretty cool how it comes together, right? Now that's not to say this is superior to a cover 3 zone. You can see this exact same play against a cover 3 zone. Actually, the zone is a little bit more effective with the curl flat defender. But it is a good changeup, and it allows you to play man coverage when you don't have players who can typically run man coverage. In either a zone or match, there are multiple ways to run cover 3 as well in terms of who covers what area. The term buzz means the safety is in the hook curl zone instead of the linebacker. This can be effective when you don't mind the matchup on the number 2 receiver, like your linebacker against their tight end in this example, and you want that extra run support, especially when the offense tries to spread you out. The final coverage installation for today is cover 0. This is a 6-man pressure with all other players locked up in man coverage. It is a very aggressive defense that can be high risk and high reward. You'll have several defenders in the box to defend the run, and if the offense does decide to throw, the quarterback usually has to make a decision very quickly or else he'll be under a lot of pressure. Don't blow a coverage or miss a tackle though, because the defense is so aggressive, all it takes is one mistake and it could be a touchdown for the offense. Day 1 is officially in the books, and Coach Rigatoni feels proud of his guys for the work they put in. But this was just the foundation, and the next coming days are going to be a lot harder, both physically and mentally. It's time for these players to get some rest and get ready for day 2. They're definitely going to need it. It's day 2 for Coach Rigatoni and the Bologna State team. The players are a little sore from yesterday and still trying to grasp some of the concepts, and we're going to keep piling it on today. We're sticking with our same personnel groupings and formations from yesterday to help the learning stick, but we're adding power, counter, and we're going to install some of our 3-step passing game as well. So let's jump right in. Power can be a great change-up to the wide zone because it takes advantage of when a defense tries to overprotect its edges. The goal of the power run is to create a wall of blockers that block down and then kick out the end man on the line to create an inside running seam. The running back in this case just wants to stay on the inside hip of his pulling guard and look for daylight. Don't start sprinting until you see that lane. You want to stay under control until you're ready to burst. As we did yesterday, this power run will be available in every offensive formation we have in the Singleback personnel. So all 11 personnel, 12 personnel, 13 formations will need reps of this play. And you would run this to the left and to the right in training camp so your entire team can get a feel for how this play operates from both sides, their footwork, their angles, their blocking, all of it. You can imagine how this play, along with the wide zone that we ran yesterday, can put a lot of stress on the edge of a defense. Next up is the counter play, which is blocked and run similarly to power. The goal is for the front side of the play to all block down and create a wall, and then the first player through will kick out the end man on the line, and the next player through is going to be a lead blocker for the running back. The The running back needs to hug the down block tight on this play and stay inside the kick-out block. Ideally, you want to run this from the inside out, meaning you want to stay tight until you have a reason not to. This is a great play if the defense overcommits to one side expecting the wide zone or the power, and it can just generally be a great way to create inside angles to run the ball. Now it's time to start throwing the ball. This is a slant flat concept on one side with a stick concept on the other. So we'll read both to get the team comfortable with how to run both. First of all, when it comes to our three-step passing game, which is our short passing game, the goal is to get the ball out quick. So don't think you have a bunch of time here, because you don't. The offensive line is going to base block this, which means big on big. Your big players block their big players, and then the center is going to block the mic. The halfback is blocking on this play, so he'll pick up the weak side linebacker. Those players with a fire indicator over their head are hot, which means the offensive line is not accounting for them in the blocking scheme. If they blitz, it's the quarterback's job to protect himself and know immediately where his hot receivers are. This is the true spirit of a hot route, which is a sight adjustment against pressure, but people don't seem to use it for that purpose anymore. The read on this play is fairly simple. On the slant flat side, we're reading the flat route first. If he's open, throw the ball immediately. If he's covered, throw the slant. This decision needs to happen by the quarterback's third step so he can release the ball on time. So let's run this now. Third step, is the flat route open? Yes, we take it. We throw the ball to the flat, we take our yardage. Third step, is it open? Yes, we throw the flat route, we take our yardage. This isn't supposed to be a home run. Third step, is he open? No, we throw the slant. This is a great first down play to just get a couple yards, or 3rd and 3, and here it is in real speed. On the other side with the stick concept, you're making the same read. You read the flat route first, and if he's open, take it. If he's not open, you throw the stick. So third step, is he open? Throw it. Just take your yardage. Don't try to be greedy on this. This is a 3-step pass. Is he open? No. We throw the stick route. Take your 2 to 3 yards. Take your 4 yards. That's what the play is designed to do. Is he open? Yes. Throw the flat. Take your yardage. Here it is in full speed, so you can get the idea of how to run the play. If you're running stick on a 3-receiver side, you typically want to look at the go route first, but then it's the flat and then it's the stick route. So always alert that go, and you always have the backside alert if you like the matchup. Our final 3-step passing game we're going to include is spacing. Spacing is read really the same way. It's the flat route first, then the first curl, then the inside curl. You have your backside alert if you like the matchup, but overall it's flat, first curl, second curl. Throw it immediately to the first open guy. On day 2 for the defense, we're going to stay in the same base personnel that we installed yesterday, again, just to help reinforce the learning, but we're going to install 3 new coverages. So cover 4, cover 2, and some pressure from cover 1. So let's get right into it. Cover 4 quarters from a 2-receiver set is a match coverage similar to cover 3 match, which we installed yesterday. The rules of the defenders depend on what the offense does. The outside corners will play man-to-man on the number 1 receiver to their side unless that player goes underneath. If that happens, they pass him inside and get their eyes on number 2. The safeties are reading the release of number 2. If he attacks vertically up the field, the safeties play him man-to-man. If he releases inside immediately, the safety drops to the middle of the third to defend the deep post from either side of the field. If he releases outside immediately, the safety plays underneath number 1 to his side to rob a curl or an in route. The safety is also paying attention to whether number 2 down blocks or blocks out, because that means he's involved in the running game. The quarter flat player is also reading number 2. If number 2 goes underneath or plays vertical, he lets him go and plays underneath number 1 to his side. If number 2 releases outside immediately, then the quarter flat player takes him man-to-man. The hook player is keeping his eyes on number 2 as well. If number 2 goes vertical, he looks for anything underneath from number 1. If they both go vertical, then he has number 3 to his side. If number 2 goes underneath, then he takes him man-to-man. Quarters coverage can be very useful in certain situations because it essentially allows you to have 9 defenders in the box against the run, while still maintaining solid pass coverage. Because the safeties are reading number 2 to each side, if that player blocks, you can see they join the play fairly quickly in run support. It also creates a natural double team on any number 1 against many route combinations. It's a great tool to have in your toolbox, and many pro defenses use this against a 2-back running game for the advantages it creates. rotates. Tampa 2 is a zone coverage that has the corners and the flats, and the middle linebacker basically playing a deep third assignment. Think of it like a cover 3 variant with 3 deep players and 4 underneath, with your players not having to move side to side as much because they're basically in the spot that they're going to cover. The corners are supposed to reroute the number 1 receiver inside and then sink to the flat, getting their eyes on number 2 and watching for any corner routes. If number 1 plays really hard towards the sideline, the corner should carry him through the flat area to prevent the quarterback from trying to drop the ball in the bucket in that vacancy. The hook curl zone defenders are watching the seams and then dropping to their curl areas. The middle linebacker is defending the vertical seam with any deep post routes, and the safeties are covering the deep half on each side, with their landmarks being the top of the numbers on both sides. This can be a relatively safe defense to force an offense to drive down the field, as it's typically hard to hit big plays on it if it's run properly. The goal is to keep everything in front of you and then rally quickly to make a tackle. With cover 1 pressures, your goal is to bring a 5-man rush with a blitzer from some area of the defense with 5 underneath players in man coverage and 1 deep safety playing over the top. This can be a mix between aggressive while still not being completely burned deep like in a cover 0. Bringing the safety down to create pressure can often create problems for the offensive blocking scheme since they usually don't account for him, or bringing a linebacker can give you an extra pass rusher while the safety covers that player. You can blitz pretty much anyone from this coverage, whether it's the Will, Sam, Mike, a safety, or even a corner in some defenses. It can be an effective idea to bring some heat without risking too much, especially if you have good man coverage players or good matchups. Welcome to day 3 of training camp. My guess is you are as tired as some of these players are right now, and day 3 tends to be really hard physically and mentally. You've already been pushing yourself to the limit, your body is sore, and new concepts just keep coming. So while we're taking a quick water break, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment on this video to help its reach if you think this is valuable information. Also remember to follow along with any of the creative playbooks for both the offense and the defense in the description of this video. It really does mean the world to me as a small content creator. Day 3 of offense is all about repeating our running plays now from our 21 and 22 personnel, which is our I formation, as well as the 3-step passing game we already installed. We will also continue our passing game from Singleback and start building out our 5-step drops, which are a little bit deeper. So let's get into it. The stretch play from I formation is run very similarly to the stretch from Singleback that we installed earlier. We're still targeting the outside leg of the tight end, and we follow our rules to either stay on track, cut it up, or bend it back. The main difference is the fullback lead blocker. The advantage in the game it does give you is the blockers don't need to be as sticky, meaning if a defender does get some separation and shed their block, the fullback can help pick it up before it gets to your running back. Having a fullback in the running game in some ways creates an extra gap that the defense needs to account for. If you have everyone in a gap but the fullback is an extra player in that gap, then it creates a running lane where no defender is covering. So defenses have to account for this in their regular schemes. You can see that stretch, power, and counter are all run similarly as they were in Singleback, but the lead block can sometimes create better angles against some fronts or give the running back a little extra protection where needed. Let's talk about the drive passing concept. Drive is a pure progression. You will always read your isolated receiver where the drive is heading first, so in this case the out route, then you will read the underneath drag, then you will read the deep end. The backside route, which in this case is a post, is always matchup dependent. So if you've got like Randy Moss out there, you just generally like that and take it. Feel free to take a shot wherever it makes sense. But the key to this play is always reading that front side receiver first, because sometimes he can just win his matchup and get you a bunch of yards right off rip. I'll take it slow on this one just so you can see it. First read is square in this case, and he's running the seam. I like him inside, just throw him hard inside, take your yards. This play, he's running the seam. I don't like it. My next read is the underneath drag. We take it, we take our yards. This one is a version where we have a comeback. We don't like it. We go underneath. He's there. We take it. If he's also not there, we throw the deep in. On this one, we like the comeback. He's available. Take it, right? So once you do repetitions of this, it just becomes very natural and your eyes kind of just flow where they need to go in order to make this read every time. This is a smash concept. It's one of the most popular route combinations in all of football because it works against any coverage and it's a fairly simple read. Here's how it works. We have a flat receiver, which in this case is the curl route, and we have someone over his head, which in this case is a corner route. You simply read the corner. If he drops, you throw the curl. If he stays short, you throw it over his head. The leverage usually works in your favor because it's hard for the inside players to make it to the curl in time, and it's hard for anybody to cover the corner on time. Just make sure you're decisive and throw it quick. This one will take some practice. Y shallow cross is another pure progression. You can look for the home run with the post route if the middle of the field is open or if you like the matchup, but otherwise you would read the shallow cross first, then the deep in, and then the curl in the middle. This is a pure progression because that's your read against any defense. So you can see I'm going to the underneath route first. It's available, we take it. Underneath here first, we don't like it. Deep in, we don't like it. Throw the curl, take our yards. That's how you run the play. Mesh is another important concept to understand. The post is available as a matchup or if the middle of the field is open. Typically, if we have this rail route from the running back, I actually like to make this first in the progression. You don't have to do this, but it's a Coach Rigatoni thing. Otherwise, you're looking at the underneath drag first, so in this case circle, and then the deeper drag, which is the tight end, and then ending with the curl route. The goal is for the two receivers who are crossing each other to be nearly shoulder to shoulder because it's very difficult for any man defender to get around this and stay in coverage on that underneath drag route. A curl flat combination is another classic. This one has a seam built into it from the tight end, so the progression is seam route first, then curl, then flat. This is really just another high-low read on the flat defender. Try to anticipate openings based on where the defense is lined up and be ready to throw the ball with good timing. You don't want to be late on a curl route and you don't want to be wrong on a curl route, so rep this a few times until you're comfortable with what you're seeing consistently. Day 3 defense time. We're going to install all of our nickel packages today and revisit the coverages we already went over and how they interact with trips formations. Then we'll hit some cover 2 man, bracket coverages, and fire zones. Let's get to it. Cover 1 works the same in nickel as it did in our base defense, but as a coach and putting the team through training camp, I want to also emphasize the variations of cover 1. Earlier we were running what the game calls cover 1 hole, where the linebackers play a funnel technique. But here we're playing cover 1 robber, which means the safety is the rat player and dropping in the box. You could run this with the safety on the same side as the running back, the opposite side as the running back, the same side as the tight end, the opposite side. There could be a lot of rules here. But bringing the safety up as the rat player is usually a better answer into RPO heavy teams, and having the safety on the opposite side of the back is even better when the defensive end is keying the quarterback. Let's talk about one of 2 very disappointing match coverages in this game, cover 3 Mable. This is a cover 3 match defense that is specifically designed to be played into a trips formation where there are 3 receivers to one side. So why is this disappointing? Well, in Mable, the strong corner is going to bail to the deep third. He has man on number 1 vertical. If number 1 is not vertical, then he takes number 2 vertical. The player in the strong curl zone has man on number 2, except when number 2 goes under, then he buzzes to the flat. If 2 goes outside, then he looks to cut him underneath. Kind of similar to what he does in cover 3 match. The strong hook player takes number 3 if he heads outside, and if number 3 heads inside, then he pushes to the hook and he takes number 2. The weak hook defends all inside and deep crosses by number 3. If number 3 goes out, then he pushes to defend the hook. And the weak curl player has man on the running back if he flows to his side. If the running back stays to block or flows away strong, then he's going to cut off the first crosser. Finally, the weak corner has a rule called Meg, and Meg is man everywhere he goes, which means you just simply man-to-man this player. Well, the game doesn't do this, at least as far as what I can tell and what I've tested. That said, I would love for someone to tell me this is just based on the play recognition stats for the players, and I'm completely wrong here. I typically just chalk this up to players not always running coverages right in real life, but it's a bit of a bummer when it doesn't work right. Next up is cover 4 palms, and for those paying attention in class, you'll notice that you didn't see palms coverage in any of our base personnel groups, and frankly same with Mable. That's because palms is a trips adjustment for quarters, and you typically run your trips adjustments with your nickel or dime packages. So let's walk through this one. The strong corner is in a press alignment, and he is going to play mag, which is man everywhere he goes on number 1. The strong curl player is man on number 2, except when number 3 is out or when number 2 runs under. If number 3 is out, then you take number 3 man-to-man. If 2 runs under, then you zone off. The strong hook player, if 2 or 3 runs under, then match that crossing route. Otherwise, wall off the number 3 from the inside and take him to the safety if he goes vertical. The strong safety is going to take all of number 3 vertical. If 3 is not vertical, then take and or bracket number 2 if he is vertical. And the weak curl player in this zone is going to take any number 2 weak. If there is no number 2 weak, then he's going to take the first crosser. The backside corner is also mag, which is man everywhere he goes on the number 1. The weak safety is doing what's called a poach technique, which means he is going to take any deep crossers from the other side of the field. If there are no deep crossers, he will play the post on number 1 to his side. I do notice they run this coverage fairly consistently in the game, so this is a great one to run as a trips adjustment. If you think about it, the least likely receiver to throw to in a trips formation is generally the outside receiver in the trips. So this coverage just locks him down man-to-man, and then it's essentially just a quarters coverage on number 2 and number 3 with a poach player backside. If your head is completely spinning from all this match coverage, here's a simpler one to install, cover 2 man, or in many circles call this cover 5. It's as straightforward as it looks, however the one important note about this coverage is the players will generally play this with inside leverage. If you remember in cover 1, they played with outside leverage because their help was inside. On this play, they don't have any help inside, so the goal is to force the ball high into the sideline where the safeties can make a play. The corners are going to use a dog technique, which means playing their receiver very aggressively. It doesn't mean it's okay to get beat deep because you have help, so let him beat you. It just means it's okay if he does beat you deep, but you want to cover him strong regardless. Now let's get into bracket coverages. In a double bracket, the defense will typically bracket the first slot receiver and then the opposite side edge receiver. The way a bracket works is the corner will play outside leverage and the safety will play inside leverage. So in this case, because we are running bracket switch, the corner will play inside leverage and the safety will play outside leverage on the slot player. The outside receiver is still always in a normal bracket. This can be a great coverage against condensed fronts, and there's some good tricks you can play with brackets to get help where you need it. Because if the receiver goes towards the corner's leverage, the safety can just let him go and defend elsewhere, and the corner already has good leverage from his positioning. If the receiver goes away from the corner's leverage, he runs right into the safety who's helping him. This is also how a double team works, so if you double any of the receivers, they will bracket that player. Let's get into some fire zones, or 3x3 pressures as Coach Rigatoni likes to call them. These can come in a variety of forms, but the basic root of it is you're bringing 5 rushers with 6 defenders deep. The rules in a fire zone are actually very similar to match rules, which is why we installed those first. The corner's played number 1 man-to-man unless he goes under in the first 5 yards. The seam flat players will take number 2 man-to-man unless he goes under. The hook defender is looking for number 1 or number 2 coming at him, and if everyone goes vertical, then he plays number 3 to either side. With the added pressure of the 5th rusher, the goal is to create some chaos for the quarterback before he can throw the ball. There are multiple ways to run these 3x3 pressures from a variety of formations as well. Welcome to day 4. Kudos to you for sticking around and making it through day 3. That is usually always one of the toughest days in camp. Day 4 will be about getting our shotgun installation in, our deeper passing game and pass protection, play action passing, and screen game. We're almost through the week. Let's grind through this. Let's go. This is a basic flood play. The goal of a flood is to put more receivers on one side than they have defenders. The read is the go route first, then the flat route, then the deep out. As always, you have your backside alert for any matchups, and your running back will be your check down here. Don't be afraid to throw to the open guy or your best matchup. This is a dagger concept. It's a high-low read on the hook defender. Your eyes should start on the deep in or the dagger route. If it's not there, look for the underneath player who's running that speed out, or sometimes it's somebody from across the field. I ran this 3 times in a row, and all 3 times the dagger was wide open. So what does that tell you? You figure it out. This is a 4 verticals concept from trips. The outside receivers are both alerts if you like the matchup or the leverage. But the typical read here is from the inside slot to the outside slot to the running back. You're looking for seams to pop open or for leverage against man coverage. Dump it to the back if you need to, but do not be afraid of your alerts on either side. If you see something you like pre-snap, like a safety coming down, pull the trigger and let your guys go make a play. This is a double dig or 2 in routes on one side. The read here is simple. It's the first in route, then the deeper in route, followed by the back in the flat. So first in route not there, second not there, back in the flat, get them the ball. First in route, we like it, we throw them the ball. And just because it's day 4, don't you dare fall asleep on your backside post when you have a good matchup, quarterback, please. This is a Mills concept. This is a deep post with a deep in on the same side. This route combination absolutely shreds nearly all pattern match split safety coverages. The idea is that the deep in is going vertically, so he occupies the safety. That leaves the post one-on-one with the corner. This is a stick wheel concept. Your read on this is the post to the wheel, but like on any pass, especially a deep pass, it's important that you know your hot receivers. You can see that some unblocked defenders are coming at my quarterback, so I just dump the ball out quick for easy yardage and the back does the rest. But typically when we're running this play, we're looking for the post and then we're looking for the wheel shot down the sideline. And don't you dare, and I mean don't you dare, forget about your backside matchup when it makes sense. Let's talk a little bit more about 5-man pass protection. In this example, you can see that the line is choosing not to block that defensive end. Maybe the game knows something I don't and he's dropping into coverage, but I'm not going to take that chance. To fix this, we can zone block to the right and base block to the left, or half slide to the right as the game calls it. What this does is it makes the left guys block the big guys and the right side will block gaps, so the A gap, B gap, and C gap. A full slide would leave just the running back to block the edge. From there, it's all about understanding what else is happening. I've got 3 receivers to the left and there are 2 DBs plus a safety. One of those players is hot, meaning he's not accounted for by my 5 blockers. So if he blitzes, not only is he going to get in untouched, but that leaves a 2-on-3 with my outside receivers against their defense. This is a really easy decision if I'm paying attention, and a really bad problem if I'm not. Here's another example. Same offensive play, different defense. I don't like the way that they're base blocking it. We do a half slide. We can see the hot defender. We see that he blitzes. We throw it hot into the pressure. It's almost too easy when you're looking for it, right? Another good tool that you should utilize, especially against a good player, is the double team. So especially pay attention to situations where you can double team someone so you're not getting too much pressure from their star players. Now let's get into our play action stuff. We have boots and we have slides. A slide is just when a player comes from across the formation to be the flat route on the play side. The reads here are basically always the same. You want the flat route first, then the deep route, then the crosser. Keep in mind that the quarterback's legs are another weapon on this play, so you can always run if you don't like any of your passing options. As a coach, you would always want a play action fake that looks exactly like all of your running plays. You want to keep everything looking and feeling the same so the defense has to constantly guess what your next move is going to be. That's the goal of good offensive play calling. All I'm going to say about screens in this video is that we're installing them. I think you know how to run them, and this video is not about getting in the weeds and the mechanics of how they would block this. Just know there's a lot of timing and rhythm involved, but none of that matters for this. On day 4 of defense, we're going to install our dime personnel groupings and all the coverages we ran up to this point with them. We'll install our cover 6 and cover 9, which utilizes some concepts we've already shared. We'll go over simulated pressures and install our stunts for both pass and run defense. Let's get into it. For dime packages, we have a 3-2 and a 3-2 sugar, and then we have our normal, our load weak, our rush with 4 down linemen. Let's talk about cover 6. The game calls this cover 6, and my guess is because it's cover 4 on one side and cover 2 on the other. Essentially, we're playing box coverage to the receiver strength with a backside cut, which we haven't explained yet. One thing to know is that this soft squat and vert hook go together like meatballs and pasta. The corner is taking the first man to the flat, and the vert hook is playing man on number 2, except when number 2 goes to the flat, then he looks to rob number 1. The safety is taking number 1 vertical, and if number 1 is not vertical, then he plays bracket coverage on number 2. Another important front side technique of this is the box coverage that I just spoke about, and this is played often into a bunch, which is what you're seeing here. The rules are fairly simple. Think of these 4 players defending these 3 players in the shape of a box. So the quarter flat player has the first man short and outside, the hook player has the first man short and inside, the corner has the first man deep and outside, the safety has the first man deep and inside. I want to show you this example of cover 6 against a 2x2 set because honestly I just think it's beautiful. It's like artwork on a football field. Watch this again and again. These players cover this so perfectly. Next we have cover 9, which I think they're trying to say that it's cover 6 flipped, hence the cover 9, but this would be called clip coverage. I mentioned how Mable was my first big disappointment in the match coverage in this game, and cover 9 is my second because this is one of my favorite coverages and I feel like they did this pretty dirty. So here's how it's supposed to work. The strong corner is going to take the first man to the flat. Could be number 1, number 2, number 3, doesn't matter. The strong vert hook player, if number 3 releases to the flat, then he's man on number 2 for everything. If number 3 does not release to the flat, then man on number 2 for everything, except for when number 2 goes out to the flat and then rob number 1, because the corner has the first guy to the flat. The hook player is man on number 3, except for when number 3 goes out to the flat, or when he runs a deep crossing route. If number 3 goes to the flat, then zone to defend the curl area. If number 3 is vertical back across, then just carry him to the weak safety. The strong safety is playing all of number 1 vertical. If number 1 is not vertical, then bracket number 2. It's a lot of the same rules that we talked about with cut in cover 6, except just 2 trips. The weak curl player is man on number 2 weak or number 4 strong, which could be the running back. The weak safety is poaching number 3 vertical from the back side. If number 3 is not vertical, then poach number 1 on your side. And the weak corner is Meg on number 1, man everywhere he goes. The problem I have is they don't always do this. Like in this example, my quarter flat player is supposed to take the running back and he's just wide open. I ran the same play against the same play 4 times in a row, and all 4 times something different happened. Like in this one, the corner takes the running back and leaves a vacancy on the post. And then in this example, my quarter flat player does take the running back, he's just really late, and then again, the coverage on the post is really bad. And then in this example, for some reason, the vert hook took the running back, which he should never do. I would love for somebody to tell me that this is based on the player's stats and it adds a layer of realism to the game, but the corner's got the first guy to the flat. Come on, take him, he's right there. A sim pressure or a simulated pressure is just any play that makes it seem like you're bringing pressure, but you still drop the normal amount of players into coverage. So almost always, a defensive lineman will drop into a zone to make up for another player who's blitzing. It's designed to confuse the quarterback into thinking there's more rushers than there really are. You would consider running these plays with the defensive lineman covering into the boundary so he doesn't have a lot of space to cover because he's typically not a super fast guy. When it comes to stunts, there's pass rushing stunts and run defending stunts. When you get into a 3rd and long situation, you should almost always be thinking about ways to pressure the quarterback even if you aren't blitzing. Alignment is a great way to cause confusion for the offensive line, like with load fronts or mug fronts. Look at how quick this stunt got pressure and it's only a 4-man rush. And similar to a pulling guard, we can stunt our defensive linemen to get extra bodies at the point of attack too. Check out how this stunt puts the defensive tackle right in the running lane. Coach Rigatoni will be using this extra weapon as a part of his attack on quarterbacks this season. It's day 5, and I'm as proud of you as I am of me at this point. What a marathon this week has been. We're going to wrap up with some goal line and red zone stuff, some final passing concepts, a little bit of tempo installation so we're ready for the season. Let's get going. Near the goal line and in the red zone, you have very limited space to work with, so it's important that you're decisive and you have a plan for what you want to do. Fans of this series will know this Hulk formation and the stretch and power play, but we also want to be able to throw down here from our condensed sets. In terms of our red zone stuff, we want a variety of ways to take advantage of the limited space down here. You want to look for plays in your playbook that have an RZ label on them, or play along using Coach Rigatoni's playbook. There's a lot of creative plays in here like slot fades, whips, crossers, scissors with the running back coming out of the backfield. All of it's designed to give you an advantage and turn these drives into touchdowns and not field goals. To finish the offensive installation, Coach Rigatoni is going to do something he's never done in the 3 years of being a head coach at Bologna State. He's going to move the ball back in practice. Bologna State has a burner at wide receiver this year, and sometimes you can take your whole playbook and just throw it out the window when you have great players. It's not so much about the plays and the defense as it is about the players, so always remember your matchup routes in any of these concepts and look for ways to get your playmakers the football. These aren't always high percentage plays, but they can flip the field or give you a quick score to give your team momentum, so they're always useful to have in the bag for when you really need them. In terms of tempo, keep in mind that personnel groupings can be under center or in shotgun. Whenever the team has 11 personnel, they can run all of their single back and shotgun plays from it. Coach Rigatoni will always have a run, a blitz beater, a zone beater, some type of match beater in his arsenal and his passing formations as audibles. Make sure you're prepared for anything you might be up against when you're stuck at the line of scrimmage in a bad play call. Plus, it kind of just looks cool to start in an empty formation, turn it into single back drive that we repped a million times in practice. Day 5 defense. Let's get our goal line and red zone stuff in, talk about a few other pressures and spies, and wrap up with formation checks and defending tempo of our own. Here we go. On the goal line and in the red zone, you no longer have to worry about throws going over your head. The sideline and the end line act as extra defenders. If you remember our cover 2 man principles, the players will play low and inside leverage, and in cover 1 they'll play outside leverage. You can use these coverages and adjust your deep zones wherever you need them to get extra help if your opponent isn't using heavy goal line formations near the 5. Also keep in mind that as you get into the red zone, because you still don't need to defend deep, bracket coverages and blitzes become a lot more useful. You have less ground to cover and you don't have the threat of getting beat deep, so use all of your resources to force a field goal or a turnover in these situations. When it comes to formation checks and tempo, make sure you have answers to trips formations, a way to play man coverage, a way to play zone, and a pressure all built into your repertoire. Any play could be the play that decides the game, and you don't want to lose a down or burn a timeout simply because you had a bad play call. These situations are easily avoidable if you have good audibles preset in your playbook. Well, you did it. Please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting if you enjoyed this video. This truly took me way longer than I'd even like to admit, and as a small content creator, it really helps get my videos shown to more people. This video was the what and the how, but the season is where we explain the when and the why. So stay tuned for more about how to utilize these plays and concepts every Tuesday, where the rigatoni recipe continues. See you next Tuesday. We're out. Take care.